The Tab S4 was launched all the way back in 2018, which was the year the Pixel 3, Galaxy S9 and iPhone XS came onto the scene. A very different looking world. Meanwhile, the Tab A8 is an early 2022 device, so surely 3 years makes a difference, right? Right? Both devices feature 10.5-inch 16x10 displays and occupy similar physical footprints, but that's where the display similarities end, with the A8 looking a touch more modern with its rounded corners, but having the otherwise inferior display. The A8 takes the budget-friendly approach and only manages a pretty plain-looking TFT LCD with a resolution of 1200 by 1920. This is absolutely fine for general use, but the colours are more muted. The viewing angles are rather average, and obviously blacks aren't all that black. This is in contrast to the superb display on the S4, being a Super AMOLED running at 1600 by 2560. You just don't see many OLED displays in this price range, needing to creep up a bit just to get a taste. The colours are bright and punchy, the viewing angles are fantastic, and the blacks are perfect. Even so many years later, the Tab S4's display just holds up. It's not exactly lacking in performance either, in a relative sense. That's the advantage of the once high-end Snapdragon 835 in the S4, which still drives things well. Not as zippy as it could have been though, as the 845 should have been the chip of choice upon release, with it being included in other devices earlier that year, like the previously mentioned Galaxy S9 and Pixel 3. Despite its age, it does still pack a decent amount of processing power, more so in the multi-core department. The GPU is also reasonable, especially in comparison to other recent budget offerings, and it's not held back by weird RAM configurations. In comparison, the Tab A8 is all over the place. While the Unisoc T618's less efficient CPUs do manage similar Geekbench scores, in practice, its setup of 2 performance and 6 efficiency cores compared to the S4's 4 and 4 setup makes tasks like loading apps and menus just feel slow. It's less close when it comes to the GPU though, with it being significantly worse in the A8. There's also the confusing array of RAM configurations between 2 and 4 gigs, with anything less than 4 being a bit of a trap. That said, I had no issues using either tablet, but the experience on the A8 is rather limited due to its lack of grunt, and you really need to possess a heck of a lot more patience, while also giving up any meaningful multitasking. Not so for the S4 though, which was fine for any basic task thrown at it, and it didn't even mind jumping between a few apps. Some casual gaming can even be on the cards for either tablet, both able to run old emulators and older games, with the S4's beefier GPU and RAM running things smoother while not letting you get too bored while waiting on loading screens. Meanwhile, I was genuinely surprised the A8 worked at all, but I wouldn't rely on it too much though. Over to software, and it's probably one of the other biggest differentiators between these tablets. Sure, they both run One UI, but due to its age, the S4 no longer gets any updates at all, feature or security, leaving its final update at Android 10 with the June 2022 security patch. The much newer A8 has also run out of feature updates, but this at least ended up with Android 13, missing out on this year's upside down cake, but still getting security updates for at least another year. Beyond stating version numbers though, they're both rather functional, but depending on your use case, the security updates may be a deal breaker for you. You will generally be fine though, as long as you keep other apps updated and practice good cyber safety. The S4 on Android 10 is definitely missing some of the recent quality of life changes, like the more granular notification and permission settings. Most of the big stuff tends to come through as regular updates through the Play Store now anyway, so those big annual versions aren't as important. Some menus are obviously different, being better optimised for tablets on later versions of Android, but the biggest benefit of note is the dock found in the recent One UI builds. Rounding things out with the physical stuff, neither device has a fingerprint reader, but the A8 does have an okay face unlock option. It is purely optical, so it has all those drawbacks like poor low light performance and security. The S4 trumps this with its intelligent scan feature, leveraging an iris scanner and face unlock together to provide a more consistent experience in a wider range of lighting conditions. Those front-facing cameras are in different spots too. The battery situation is kinda same, with both packing over 7,000 mAh batteries and similar slow charging speeds. Pretty Samsung typical. The rest of the build is not at all surprising based on their categories. Budget A8 is aluminium, feels light and durable, but has poor joins which can feel a bit cheap and sharp. The Premium S4 is a heavy, solid-feeling glass sandwich, which feels modern and well put together. Both do sport headphone jacks and quad speakers at least, which is nice. While years separate them, I still find it amazing that the S4 keeps going and going. If you can get your hands on one for a good price, I would definitely recommend picking one up over the A8. If you really need the security updates though, you might be better splurging on a more recent device like a Pixel Tab anyway, keeping the A8 in a weird spot.